So far on this channel, we have looked at Japanese shows the world exported and ones the world still hasn't caught up to. Today, an even stranger one, a 1990s Japanese TV show. Ordinary people came on stage, and they competed at bragging about their own misery. The poorer you sounded, the more money you won. The show was called Quiz the Devil's Whisper. It aired on TBS from 1994 to 1996. It was a hit. Ratings remained high until the very end, and nowhere else on Earth has television ever quite recreated it. After 30 years writing for Japanese television, let me break it down. Quiz the Devil's Whisper aired on TBS every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. from May 1994 to May 1996. It ran for exactly 2 years. And in those 2 years, it became something Japan in its 1990s economic darkness deeply needed. The hosts were two of Japan's most legendary entertainers. Ichiro Furutachi, a live broadcaster of almost mythic skill, the same man who would later anchor Japan's flagship evening news program for over a decade, and Akiko Wada, a singer-turned-cultural icon, famous for her enormous voice, her brutal honesty, and her motherly warmth all at the same time. The setup of the show was strange and brilliant. A guest came on stage. They had no script. They had to deliver a real presentation. Why they were poor. Why they desperately needed money. A studio audience of 100 ordinary people sat in judgment. They listened, and they voted. If 50 or more felt sympathy, the guest won 500,000 yen. Then a quiz. Get it right, and the prize doubled. 1 million yen? The show began with a ritual that became legendary. Furutachi would shout, "Next poor person, please." A gong would sound, and then Wada, together with the entire 100-person audience, would shout in unison, "Come on!" Then the next contestant stepped onto the stage. And on primetime Japanese television, in front of millions of viewers, a stranger began begging for money. This was primetime TV in 1990s Japan, and it worked. Why was a show like this a hit? 3 reasons. 1. It turned misery into a kind of humor. In Japan, complaining about your own bad luck has a long tradition. There is a comedic warmth to it. Self-deprecation, taken to a stage. Japanese friends, after work, do this with each other over drinks. My boss yelled at me again. My wife is angry. I can't afford to buy my kid the new game. This show took that everyday Japanese habit, the way friends talked to each other late at night, and turned it into competitive entertainment. It was familiar, it was warm, and it was hilarious. 2. The definition of poor was unlike anywhere else. The show's poor was not only about money, it was about unmet desire. The gap between what you have and what you want. One guest had 16 million yen in savings, but refused to spend any of it, and still claimed she needed more. A young woman wanted plastic surgery she could not afford. A man wanted a sports car. A husband wanted a divorce, but didn't have the money to leave his wife. Their poverty was emotional. Their need was real. This redefinition of poverty, from a material condition to an emotional one, was something Japanese society in the 1990s desperately needed to understand. And this strange quiz show was, almost by accident, teaching it. 3. The two hosts were genius. Furutachi, the legendary live broadcaster, had a gift few people in the world possess. He could listen carefully, sympathize honestly, and then, with surgical precision, find the one absurd contradiction in a guest's story and laugh about it. His commentary was never cruel, always observational, always sharp. Wada was his counterweight. She brought a maternal energy. She would shake her head at a guest's foolishness. She would laugh at her own past mistakes, and occasionally she would gently scold a contestant for being too proud, or too foolish, or too greedy. The chemistry between the two was the actual heart of the show. The quiz, the money, the come-on ritual were just structures. The real entertainment was watching these two. Listen to ordinary people and react to them honestly. Now, the more interesting question. This show was never exported. No Western broadcaster ever bought the format. No local versions of The Devil's Whisper exist anywhere outside Japan. Why? 3 reasons. 1. Western reality TV celebrates winners. Japan in this show celebrated losers. Almost all Western entertainment is built around showing successful, attractive, aspirational people. America's Got Talent, The Apprentice, American Idol, Shark Tank, even Survivor. The narrative is always someone wins, someone rises, someone achieves. This show did the opposite. It put failure, financial weakness, unfulfilled desire on primetime television, and it made the audience love the people for sharing it. There is even today no Western framework for that. The cultural soil cannot grow this format. 2. Bragging about being poor is uniquely Japanese. In most Western cultures, showing weakness is considered a loss of dignity. You hide your struggles, you present strength. In Japan, talking openly about one's struggles can be a form of humor, a form of bonding, and even a form of connection. Japanese friends connect by sharing their failures. Western friends often connect by sharing their successes. This deep cultural difference is, even 3 decades later, hard to translate. 3. The honesty was uncomfortable. A real human being, on national television, asking strangers for money, being judged by 100 ordinary people. Most countries' TV ethics committees would block this format before it ever aired. In the United States, lawyers would intervene. In Britain, regulators. In Germany, public outcry. Japan in the 1990s simply allowed it. Television in Japan at that time? still trusted its audience and its participants to handle the discomfort honestly. That permissiveness, that cultural openness to vulnerability on television is largely gone. Now, even in Japan, which is why this show could not be made the same way in 2026. Looking back now, the most interesting thing about The Devil's Whisper is what it quietly predicted. In 1994, Japan was deep in post-bubble economic stagnation. The dream of constant growth had collapsed. Lifetime employment was breaking down. Salaries had stopped rising. The future, for the first time in 2 generations, looked uncertain. And in that gap, this show emerged. And it proved a quiet truth, that the rest of the world would not fully understand until 20 years later. A person earning 10 million yen can still feel poor. A person earning 3 million yen can still feel rich. Wealth, the show whispered, is not about your salary. It is about the gap between what you have and what you want. This is now an idea everyone understands. Books are written about it. TED Talks are given on it. But in 1994 on Japanese primetime television, a strange quiz show was already teaching it. There is one more thing. This show, in a strange way, is the origin of today's self-deprecating content on social media. The Instagram post that says, "My life is a disaster." The TikTok video about, "I have no money and no friends." The YouTuber who builds an audience by sharing their financial failures. The Reddit thread where people compete at having the worst week. Japan invented this entire form of communication 30 years ago. On primetime TV? With a quiz show. The world is only now catching up. Quiz The Devil's Whisper was a strange, brilliant, uncomfortable show. But inside it lived 3 things. A uniquely Japanese sense of humor about misery. A definition of poor the world still struggles to understand. And a quiet prediction of how modern people would talk about themselves online. Takeshi's Castle exported laughter. Sasuke exported emotion. Iron Chef exported creativity. Denpa Shonen and Suyo Dodesho were inventions the world has not caught up to. And The Devil's Whisper is a Japanese invention. The world has not yet recognized as one. After 30 years writing for Japanese television, I still believe Japan has invented things the world has not even named yet. If there is a Japanese show you'd like me to break down next, comment below. See you next time. This was Keizo TV. Please subscribe.